people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. On the heels of her epic battle in her first professional loss at the hands of Claressa Shields, Savannah Marshall says Shields knows the fight was close. Many people want to watch it again. It's quite right. Post-fight, I saw a lot of people saying they'd like to see a second fight. They'd like to see a rematch. Savannah herself said that was a close fight. Many of those rounds could have gone either way. I know she knows that was close, Marshall told Sky Sports News. The reception we got, the viewing figures were unbelievable, and there's many people saying they want to watch it again. I'd love to do it all over again. There isn't that many girls out there. We've both got other options, but inevitably, our paths will cross again because we are the only two elite fighters at middleweight. There are quite a few changes that I could make. There are things that maybe I shouldn't have done for as long as I did. She'd probably say the same. We've both shared the ring now as pros. I got the best Claressa Shields there's ever going to be. She didn't hurt me. I know there's no way she can hurt me. Claressa is a brilliant fighter. Her accolades speak for themselves, and she's very smart. There were a couple of times I had her hurt. It's all about that one shot, and I couldn't land it. You've got to give her credit. Give credit where it's due. She's got all the accolades, all the belts. She's unbeaten. She can definitely call herself the GOAT. Now, they can have a rematch. They can run it back straight away, or they can wait. I don't know what Claressa Shields' current promotional situation is. I don't know what she's got in her itinerary, what she got on the docket. Will she make an appearance? Reappear, I should say, in the octagon? Will she return to the PFL?
Maybe.
Mixed martial arts, or?
I mean, seriously, I don't know what's next for Claressa. I don't know if talks have already started for a rematch or if she has something else in mind, something else going on behind the scenes. I don't know. Claressa Shields herself said,
"Here we go again with Savannah Marshall thinking she knows what I think. I thought I won the fight unanimously against her in her home country. There's always a little worry fighting in someone else's backyard, but I know I won the fight clearly. That's why it wasn't a majority decision."
Addressing Savannah Marshall's contention that Shields knows that the fight was close.
I think what Savannah Marshall really meant to say was that the rounds themselves were close. They were very chippy. Most of them fought in the pocket, deep inside the pocket. Claressa Shields spent a lot of time with her back against those ropes. I don't think a lot of people made light of that. You don't end up with your back on the ropes all by yourself. Somebody puts you there. And more often than not, you saw Savannah Marshall pin down Claressa Shields on the ropes. It's just that Claressa, God bless her, her hand speed and combinations, she fought her way off those ropes.
She landed a lot of eye-catching shots in a situation where both fighters are really letting their hands go. Body language.
Claressa, in spite of spending as much time with her back on those ropes as she did, she never looked subdued, submissive, as if she was on the eve of submitting to the pressure and power of Savannah Marshall. No, she was fighting back ferociously.
Claressa Shields herself said, "Me and Savannah Marshall's paths could cross again down the line. It's boxing."
But super happy with what we did and would love to run it back in America in the future, which brings us back to a talking point, an issue I raised with Claressa Shields' desire to do the fight in America this time as opposed to over there in the United Kingdom. What Claressa Shields needs to understand is, while she won the first fight, and while it does make sense for her to want to run it back in her country this time, who in her country is going to pay for it?
Because somebody has to. Claressa Shields isn't signed to an American-based promoter or an American-based network that would bankroll the fight.
She's not signed to Top Rank. She's not signed to Golden Boy, not signed to Matchroom, not signed to the PBC. She's not signed to anybody here in America. So when you say you want the rematch to be in America, what needs to be reconciled is, okay, who's going to pay for it?
Yeah.
Who's going to pay you? Who's going to pay Savannah?
Would the second fight, would the rematch here in America, get the same warm reception that the first fight did in the United Kingdom? Those fans in the UK, they're the best fans in the world.
The viewing figures for the fight, approximately 2 million homes in the United Kingdom. 2 million homes. All of that was across the pond, across the Atlantic Ocean. So the bigger audience for a rematch, the better audience, would be an audience in the UK as opposed to the US.
And the relevance of that is you need to do the fight where the fight generates the most interest and thereby the most money. great fight that it might be, I don't know that that fight here in America gets the same warm reception that it got the first time out in the United Kingdom.
Pretty sure Clarissa Shields wants to get paid. She wants to get paid well. Pretty sure the same applies to Savannah. I don't even think Savannah has a problem fighting Clarissa here in the United States, and I don't have a problem with Clarissa's demand myself. I think it makes sense that Clarissa would want the second fight to be here in America, but where's the money going to come from?
Because it has to come from somewhere. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody's got to pay for this.
What could Savannah Marshall do in a second fight that she didn't do in the first? Well, they really went balls to the wall in that first fight. And I think that given Savannah Marshall's height and her length, her wingspan, I don't think she gave herself enough room to generate that devastating power she usually generates in her other fights. She was keeping up and keeping on Clarissa Shields, but there were a lot of moments where she was smothering her work. Being that close to Clarissa, you can't generate but so much power when you're that close to the target. There's not enough room to really drive your shots and drive your punches. It's a delicate balance is what it is. You know, trying to apply enough pressure that you force the other fighter onto their back foot whilst at the same time not smothering your work by collapsing the pocket, maintaining that bit of space.
So that when you throw something, there's actually something on it. You can really drive the punch. You can really generate concussive power, the kind of power that takes the fight out of the judge's hands.
Easier said than done, I know, but that's one adjustment that Savannah needs to make ahead of a second fight, ahead of a rematch. She needs to try not to smother her work whilst applying pressure and forcing Clarissa onto her back foot, forcing her back onto those ropes.
Straight punches from the outside coming in, using her height advantage and her reach advantage.
Doubling up and tripling up on the jab, the short jab, as to get Clarissa Shields to cover up to protect herself, so when you step into that jab, you can bring over something hard without fear of return fire. There's more work needs doing if she plans on winning the second fight where she wasn't able to in the first.
Don't necessarily know if they're going to do an immediate rematch. They might decide to get Savannah out there, get her back in the winner's bracket, in what could be a confidence-building fight.
They might, because Savannah wasn't kidding when she said she's got options. She could fight Christina Hammer, former champion Aline Cedar Ruse.
She can move up in weight, see if she don't fight Franchon Cruz for undisputed at 168 pounds, and if she wins, you know, do the rematch with Clarissa for those belts.
We'll see what both teams decide to do. Do they want to go straight into an immediate rematch, or do they want to marinate this thing a little bit? We'll see. We then turn to the men's light heavyweight division. The upcoming ring return of Anthony Yarde, light heavyweight contender Anthony Yarde, who is in position to challenge Artur Beterbiev for his brown belt, the WBO title. He's going to be taking on Bulgarian Stefani Koykov.
This will be Anthony's first fight in approximately 11 months. He was last in action late last year in December.
If he makes it through this fight, he is intended to go straight into a title fight with the unified light heavyweight champion Artur Beterbiev, who will be traveling abroad to Anthony's neck of the woods in defense of his 3 alphabet titles.
What's going on?
Anthony splits a professional record of 22 wins with 2 losses, no draws, 21 knockouts. 21 of his 22 victories were won by way of knockout. He has been stopped once, at least once, about 3 or 4 years ago at the hands of Sergey Kovalev, Sergey's neck of the woods. Very ballsy of Anthony to have traveled abroad to take that fight, but it didn't work out.
Anthony didn't have home field advantage in that fight. He didn't, but he will in this one. He will in this title fight. His second attempt to become a world champion, only this time it's for more than just 1 alphabet title.
So Anthony himself, he has gained this title shot, this second world title opportunity by way of the WBO. The WBO, yet again, has made him their mandatory challenger. You know, old Fish Eyes Frank Warren, he's always had a way with the WBO.
Bob Arum, too, and it just so happens they're bosom buddies. It's not a coincidence.
He's set to be taking on Stefani Koykov, who bears a striking resemblance to John Bernthal.
The guy from The Punisher, Walking Dead.
I know John Bernthal is. This Stefani guy, he looks a lot like him, sports a professional record of 14 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 12 knockouts, having been knocked out once, at least once, the same as Anthony Yarde, though comparatively...
You know, in the past, Anthony's been subject to criticism. A lot of people like to say that his resume is paper thin. If you think his resume is paper thin, you should get a look at this guy's.
Pedestrian-level opponents, ladies and gentlemen. Pedestrian-level opponents with upside-down records as far as the eye can see.
But are mostly fighters with upside-down records, some with losses in the double digits. These are the kind of people, these are the kind of guys that Stefani has been fighting for 14 or 15 fights or however many it is.
Shades of Estrada versus Atkins. Miranda Atkins, a fighter who went into that Sinisi Estrada fight with an unblemished, unbeaten record. I believe she was 5-0 or something like that. And on paper, it looks good. On paper, it looks all right until you see the kind of fighters that she was fighting and you see the actual performance that Miranda put on. Almost immediately, you knew that Miranda Atkins didn't belong anywhere near a fighter the caliber of a Senicia Estrada. And, you know, this Stefani Koykov fight with Anthony Yarde, it's giving me those kinds of vibes based on Stefani's resume. Who is it he's been fighting for 15 fights?
In some ways, this fight with Koykov is a necessary evil because Anthony hasn't fought all year and he needs to get out there. He needs to shake some ring rust off. It's been 11 months since the Lyndon Arthur fight.
The Lyndon Arthur rematch, the big knockout win for Anthony Yarde, who avenged the decision loss in the initial fight, the first fight, by stopping that guy in the second. And you would have thought that Frank Warren would have built more off of that, built off of that for his fighter, getting him out there at some point earlier this year. For the most part, 2022, the year in 2022, has been squandered.
Time wasted.
2022 has all but come and gone, and all Anthony Yarde will have done this entire year was take on a guy, Stefani Koykov, that never fought a world-class fighter. Thus, he himself can't be one.
Of course not.
This is a tune-up fight. It's that kind of fight, that kind of rodeo. They don't want to put Anthony in there with someone who may jeopardize his title shot, his world title opportunity with Artur Beterbiev, though at the same time, they've got to let the guy shake off some of that ring rust because you don't want to go into a Beterbiev fight having not seen action in a year's time or over a year's time. So yeah, it's a necessary evil, but it's still a pity that the whole
of 2022, all he will have done is take on Stefani Koykov.
It was hardly preparation for Artur Beterbiev,
So, could Anthony have stood to be a little bit busier this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But hey, at least they're getting him out there at least once ahead of this Beterbiev fight so he can sharpen the tools, get a couple more rounds in the bank, shake off some ring rust.
And it is what it is. Anthony's a knockout puncher, He doesn't come from some deep amateur background like Joshua Buatsi or Matthew Bauderleek. He's not a GB guy, a former Olympian or a medalist or anything like that.
He's a puncher. He can box a bit, he can punch a bit. Uses a Philly shell guard.
Slips, rolls, and rides. Shots, rolls, punches off the shoulder. A little bit of hand speed there. He's definitely got power. This is definitely a guy who can punch.
And this is all set to go down a little over a week from now, about 2 weeks from now, on the 19th of this month.
Over there in the UK, it's going to be on BT Sport. No word if the people over here at ESPN Plus will decide to pick up this show, pick up this card.
Because they don't pick up all of Frank's shows, you understand, and they don't pick up all of Boxer's shows either.
They can be a bit selective with which fights, which cards, what content they wish to pick up, and this isn't a big fight. I've no doubts they'll show the Yarde versus Beterbiev fight when that goes down. Artur Beterbiev being a top-ranked fighter, they'll pick up the Beterbiev versus Yarde fight, but I'm not sure about this one. I'm not sure.
Maybe they will, maybe they won't, maybe they do, maybe they don't.
Does Anthony Yarde stand enough of a chance that he might upset the apple cart for an aging, albeit unbeaten and destructive, Artur Beterbiev?
We'll find out once Anthony makes it past Koykov.
And finally, in men's heavyweight news, former unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua says, I would fight Wallin, White, Hrgovic. I like fighting good opponents. We know that this past weekend, Eddie Hearn said the winner of White versus Franklin would be a frontrunner for an Anthony Joshua fight. Anthony Joshua himself says, yeah, I'll fight Otto, I'll fight Dillian, I'll fight Hrgovic. I like fighting good opponents. And as much as it's becoming a champion, I always felt like it was important for me to fight the best in my era, Joshua told DAZN. Because there was this whole stigma about cherry-picking, boxing. If you want to get to the top, you have to take risks. Calculated risks, but you definitely have to take risks. And I just like taking risks. It's not how popular a fighter you are that makes you a good fighter. It's how good a fighter you are that will make you popular, and it's quite right.
There's a lot of fighters out there, they've got it backwards.
They don't capture the imagination of the audience at large with their fights. They hope to achieve popularity and marquee value through other, more unconventional means, when the best way to get popular in the sport of boxing is to fight in fights that people want to see.
That's it.
So competing with the best and training for the best has always helped me elevate my game. So yeah, would I fight Wallin? Yeah, as I said, they may not be the most popular guys on social media, but they're solid fighters. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to tell you, nah, they're rubbish. I'm going to give them the credit they deserve, and I'll never underestimate anyone I step in the ring with. That's how we have to think. Everyone is a solid competitor, and that'll make me raise my game.
I like the Otto Wallin fight more than every other fight on the table.
More than the Hrgovic fight, more than the White rematch. Otto Wallin is the fight I want to see. Otto Wallin himself explained why he should be the front runner for Anthony Joshua.
I said it before, I'll say it again. Otto Wallin gave Tyson Fury all he could handle when he fought him. He took that guy by surprise.
Gave him a hard fight. Tyson Fury didn't stop him. And if Anthony Joshua can go in there and stop this guy where Tyson Fury couldn't, well, that puts the whole division back on notice. I think it's positive that my name is being mentioned, but I would like to be the front runner. I think White is a good style for Joshua. He knocked him out last time. I don't think much has changed. A guy like Usyk is a terrible style for him because Joshua struggles with good boxers, and I'm a good boxer, and I'm a southpaw. So I think I can give Joshua a better fight. I've proved myself with Fury. I gave him a really tough fight, and he handled White much easier than me.
Yeah, that is true. Tyson Fury didn't have a hard time with Dillian, but with Otto Wallin, he had a rough night.
Judging from that, I think that I'm a much better fight for Joshua. And we fought twice in the amateurs. I lost close decisions in fights that could have gone either way. And we've sparred before, so we know each other pretty well. He knows that I'm a good fighter, and I know that he's a good fighter. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially given that I have a good following in England thanks to the Fury fight and the problems I gave him. So I think people would respect that fight.
I would. More than a Dillian White rematch.
The better overall fight, for my money, and the more confidence-building fight for Anthony in particular, would be the Otto Wallin fight, because revisiting your old stomping grounds with Dillian and knocking that guy out again, that's tantamount to a security blanket.
It's tantamount to playing it safe, and that's how such a fight would be received. Could it sell tickets? Of course it could sell tickets, but is that all you want to do?
If you're going to reestablish Anthony Joshua as a dominant force in this division, and you're going to ease him back into activity so that he can be a more prolific fighter and a more productive fighter than he has been in previous years. You know, Anthony, he's been fighting once a year for the last, 2, maybe 3 years?
Fighting Dillian White again straight away as your first fight back off the loss to Usyk, fighting him again don't send the right message.
Knocking out Otto Wallin does. Knocking out Otto Wallin, who's never been knocked out. Knocking out Otto Wallin, who's only ever lost one fight, just one fight, and that was at the hands of Tyson Fury. There's no shame in that.
If you go in there with this guy and you splatter him where Tyson Fury couldn't, reestablishes you as one of the strongest finishers in this entire division, in this entire weight class. Everybody ain't Alexander Usyk, you know.
And not all southpaws are created equal. Charles Martin is a prime example. He's a southpaw, but he's no Usyk.
Neither is Otto Wallin. Otto's a solid fighter, don't get me wrong. But I do think Anthony can stop this guy, I do.
You go in there with Dillian, you fight him again, knock him out again. What's that do for you psychologically? You're not doing anything you haven't done before.
Get this guy in there with a fresh face, some new blood.
The fight I want to see is the Otto Wallin fight, if it were up to me.